Tyrone Bowman live. Global news. Taking a few minutes here to get acclimated in my little makeshift studio. So welcome to the conversation, everybody. Welcome to the program. We've got a lot of territory to cover within this next 30 to however many minutes I'm going to be live. But I will say this as I'm getting started on the day, as I'm moving stuff around from the left to the right. I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. There is a lot that's going on in the world. There's a lot going on in the nation. So what I'm attempting to do, I'm attempting to bring information from a global perspective, and not just from the standpoint of what's going on here in America. Because the consensus is, for many individuals, they only know what's going on here. They don't really pay attention to what's going on in other parts of the world as a whole. We're dealing with a very volatile time. Well, it's a volatile time. And we see the protests, we see the politicalization and weaponization going on in the land. We hear so many different things coming from so many different fractions, and people are divided on so many sides. But eventually, you know what? In order to survive as a country, we're going to have to come together. Good evening, Fred. We're going to have to come together. So let's get started here, and I'm going to bring the first story from the Marshall Project. And this article was written by Daphne Durrett. According to the news section of the Marshall Project, and the Marshall Project is a nonprofit newsroom covering the U.S. criminal justice system, and you can sign up for their newsletters to receive all of their stories and analysis. And if you like our channel, well, I'll talk about that a little later. So let's get into this. The headline reads from the Marshall Project: Judge denies Trump bid to end protected status for Haitians as ICE fears loom. Roughly 350,000 Haitians are in the U.S. through legal status, granted because of natural disasters and armed conflict in their home country. The Marshall Project is a nonprofit. I've read that already, my bad. So this story that I'm going to read, it's developing and it will continue to be updated. And as it's updated, I'll bring you current information. On Monday, a judge rejected the Trump administration's attempt to end the temporary protected immigration status of hundreds of thousands of Haitians living in America. The government's move would have cleared the way for immigration and customs enforcement agents to begin mass deportations of people from the island nation. In a scathing 83-page ruling issued Monday evening, U.S. District Judge Anna C. Reyes sided with a group of 5 young Haitian adults who sued the government, claiming officials sought to end temporary protected status for them without adequately determining whether conditions had improved in Haiti, which is wrecked with political and economic instability along with gang violence. The judge's ruling had harsh words for President Donald Trump and Department of Homeland Secretary Kristi Noem. Reyes said that it was likely that Noem had predetermined to end the protected status for Haitians, quote, because of hostility to non-white immigrants, end quote. The record strongly suggests that Secretary Noem's decision to terminate Haiti's TPS, or temporary protection status, designation was motivated, at least in part, by racial animus, quote, close quote. Judge Reyes wrote in Reyes's analysis. She said Noem failed to account for the $1.3 billion that Haitian TPS holders pay in taxes every year. Let's think about that. They have stimulated the economy since they've been in this country by $1.3 billion. That is a lot of money. It's a lot of cheddar. It's a lot of cash, a lot of cheese. And yet, the majority of these taxpayers who contributed to the economic growth of America are considered to be criminals. That's not the case at all, ladies and gentlemen. You know what it's about, and I know what it's about. She also outlined Trump's previous statements integrating Haiti and suggesting that Haitian immigrants probably have AIDS. Isn't it ironic people can come to assumptions and conclusions without any type of certified information? The ruling affects an estimated 350,000 Haitians here on temporary protected status, a program that allows immigrants to live and work in the United States legally due to conditions like natural disasters or ongoing armed conflicts in their home countries. In recent months, federal officials have also sought to end temporary protected status for immigrants from countries such as Venezuela, Ethiopia, Honduras, Nepal, and Somalia. Reyes's decision in favor of the Haitian plaintiffs is the latest example of federal judges castigating Trump's immigration practices in cases around the world. At least for now, the decision stops Trump from fulfilling a campaign promise he made in 2024 to end temporary protected status for Haitians, after Vice President J.D. Vance spread false claims that Haitian immigrants were eating the pets of residents in Springfield, Ohio. When Trump first ran in 2016, the Haitians overwhelmingly, who consider themselves to be evangelical Christians, voted for him. And they voted for him because he told them that he would not deport them. However, during the last presidential campaign cycle, the tone dramatically changed. Why did the tone change? You know, they said that the Haitians were down in Springfield eating the dogs, the cats, and the rats, and the roaches, and all this kind of stuff. Just think about it, ladies and gentlemen. In an interview with News Nation during his presidential campaign, Trump said that his stance had nothing to do with the fact that the immigrants were Haitian, but that they had overrun the small city, which had more than 50,000 residents at the time. Quote, they have to be removed, end quote, Trump said back then, nodding when a reporter asked if he'd seek to end temporary protected status for Haitians if he won the election. Absolutely. I'd provoke it, and I'd bring them back to their country, quote, close quote. Wow. In a sign that may have signaled how she was going to rule, Reyes last week told attorneys on both sides of the case that as part of her decision, she would be considering remarks that Trump made at the 2025 Conservative Political Action Conference in Maryland. In the speech, Trump described immigrants from Haiti and parts of Africa and South America as pouring into our country from prisons and mental institutions in their homelands. Reyes rejected depictions of Haitians as criminals in her ruling, Monday writing, Haitian immigrants are overwhelmingly law-abiding with incarceration rates lower than those of native-born Americans, quote, close quote. Miami immigration attorney Federle Julian was among the lawyers around the country who have been watching the case. He said, the fact that Reyes was considering Trump's words, along with the harsh questions she had for government attorneys during hearings in the case, made him almost certain that she would rule for the Haitian plaintiffs, who included a neuroscience PhD candidate, a software engineer, and a nurse who was a doctor in Haiti before he fled the violence there. We know the ruling is going to be good for us, Julian concluded on Sunday. That doesn't mean this is over. As a matter of fact, it's far from being over because they're going to appeal. They're going to appeal, and I don't see any immigrants who come from white immigrants who've come from South Africa, who were granted automatic citizenship and given green cards when they came and placed in secure parts of the nation, helping them to get jobs based upon what they said was racial discrimination against them over in South Africa. This is why we have to do our thinking for ourselves. We have to do our research for ourselves. We can't go on what the mainstream media says because we can't trust them. We cannot trust the mainstream media because they're bought and sold for by the billionaires. And they're going to do the bidding of the billionaires. And the talking heads and the analysts are only going to spew the things that they are told to spew with the earpieces down in their ear with the little producer constantly hollering at them, telling them, tread easy, tread light, don't say this, don't say that, don't do this, don't do that. And if you think your rights can't be trampled on, if you think your rights can't be affected, just keep on going along with what's wrong. And then when it happens to you, it's going to take a different tone. So let's get back to this. Over the weekend, Noam promised that even if Reyes ruled in favor of the government and temporary protected status ended for Haitians, they would have had other opportunities to stay in the country. Any individual who's from a country where TPS is expired has an opportunity to appeal that and to look at other programs that they may qualify for, and they have a number of months to do that. Noam told reporters in the news conference at Miami International Airport, they should reach out to the State Department, they should reach out to the Department of Homeland Security, and we will help them with that, and I don't believe a word of it. Julian and others told the Marshall Project before the judge's decision that they doubted Noam's agency would help Haitians under those circumstances. Reyes' ruling follows a decision from a U.S. appellate court last week that upheld a lower court ruling in a separate case that Noam had illegally tried to bring an early end to temporary protected status for Venezuelans and Haitians. In anticipation of the ruling, dozens of Haitian clergy members from around the country traveling over the weekend to Springfield for a rally. Massachusetts now reported last week that 4 people with knowledge of discussions within the Trump administration said that immigration agents were planning to mobilize in Springfield as soon as this week. In South Florida, Julian and other players, or in others, have plans for town hall meetings to help Haitians plan for whatever lies ahead. If ICE agents descended on either area, it could mark the agency's latest large-scale operations in the wake of Operation Metro Surge, a mass deportation campaign that began in December in Minneapolis, and sparked national outrage after federal agents killed 2 protesters and denied several people whom judges later ruled were being held illegally. Well, if that's not a mouthful, what would be? That's story number 1. All right, here we go with the more talk about the government shutdown. According to NPR, National Public Radio, the House has approved a spending bill to end a short-lived partial government shutdown. Now lawmakers will begin contentious negotiations over new guardrails for immigration enforcement. The House has approved a more than $1 trillion spending package that brings to an end the partial government shutdown. The legislation passed by a vote of 217 to 214. The Senate passed the package on Friday, and President Trump has endorsed the plan. The massive funds several of the government's largest departments through the end of this fiscal year in September. This includes the Pentagon and the Department of Health and Human Services, as well as the Department of Transportation, the Education Department, and Housing and Urban Development. Well, didn't they get rid of the Education Department and Housing and Urban Development? They're not doing anything anyway. You know, I've heard that dude speak, and I definitely don't want to hear anything else he has to say. Nothing. I could use stronger language, but I won't. The spending agreement also includes a stopgap measure to fund the Department of Homeland Security through February 13. Lawmakers are aiming to use the 10-day window to negotiate changes to federal immigration enforcement in the wake in the wake of the deaths of Renee Macklin Good and Alex Pretty. Those was Renee Nicole Good. They were both murdered last month in Minneapolis. Democrats are calling for several reforms, including body-worn cameras forbidding officers from hiding their identities and requiring judicial warrants for enforcement operations. Democrats, listen up. Y'all are so dumb. You're dumb and dumb and dumber. You've been duped again. You are not going to get what you're asking for even before the negotiation process begins. It's not going to happen. You all keep falling for the same okie doke over and over again. What you all should be concentrating on is the upcoming midterm elections. And what are the top issues going into November? Healthcare, Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, homelessness, joblessness. Come on here, let's talk for real. Have these politicians gone back to their hometowns? Have they seen people starving to death? Have they seen people dying in the cold weather? Have they seen the shelters being overrun? Have they seen the food pantries running out of food? Have they seen Medicare and Medicaid being eviscerated before their eyes? Have they talked to people trying to get their SNAP benefits and all the stringent attachments that go along with it? They want people as much as age 64 to work over 40 hours a week for some measly food stamps. Most of these people have already retired from their jobs. They put in their time and they don't want to have to go back out in the workforce again. These are the things that you should be talking about. The economy, the economy, the economy, the economy. Jobs, jobs, jobs. Look at the rental prices. Out of touch. Governor Hochul in New York City already canceled that was a slip, I didn't mean to say president. Mayor Mandami's order that he wanted to sign guaranteeing people not to pay bus fares and things of that nature. What is driving the crisis in America? These are things that people better start paying attention to. What is driving the civil unrest? What is driving the discontentment? What is driving the fear, the rage, and the disparity? What is driving the callousness and the polarization of politics? We don't care about the Jeffrey Epstein files. I don't care. I care about the issue that I'm talking about. How is releasing Jeffrey Epstein's files going to help people make it day to day? Tell me. All the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, they should have punished him for the horrible things that he did when he was alive. And he should never have been able to get away with it to begin with. But when you have a certain class privileged group of people, billionaires plus, they say and they do whatever they want to do because they think they're above the law. They think they'll never get caught. And remember this, the top dogs, the big guys, they're always going to look for scapegoats to make sure nothing comes back to them. There's a scapegoat in everything. Whistleblowers are punished, they're banished, they're hunted down for telling the truth about things. So the Jeffrey Epstein files, and to me, it's insidious at this point in time because it doesn't solve the problems in the economy. It doesn't help our homeless brothers and sisters. It doesn't help people right now, while I'm looking into this camera, there are people right now who are losing their jobs. There are people right now who have lost their SNAP benefits. There are people right now who are going to lose their Section 8 housing. I'm talking about law-abiding, constitutionally upright abiding citizens now. There are people whose unemployment benefits will no longer be extended. Some people are getting their final paycheck. Other people are working 2 and 3 jobs. They're coming home exhausted. They go from one job to another, not getting any rest in between. When they get their break time, they go out into their car. They try to get a 10 to 20-minute nap and then wake up at the last minute and go back inside and work like a slave. And all 3 paychecks doesn't even constitute one mortgage payment, because the more money you make, the more they take out in taxes. And greedy, scrupulous employers know that they have their workers at their mercy, so they will try to dog them, talk down to them, berate them. And some people, they just get tired of it. They just spaz out and they'll knock the hell out of their employers and keep it moving. And they'll tell me, you know what, Jack, I ain't putting up with this foolishness. Job or no job, I'll find a way to make it. And that's why a lot of people are taking matters into their own hands when it comes to survival. It's called private enterprise. Private enterprise in black language means they're going to do what they have to do to survive. They're doing it every single day. And y'all concerned about the Jeffrey Epstein files? Are you kidding? I don't care about those files. I care about the hurting and the suffering and the hungry. And how are we going to solve these problems here in America? So they want to argue about body-worn cameras. Stopping offers, they want officers to reveal their identity. And they're requiring judicial warrants. It's not going to happen. They're going to get into those meetings and tell a pack of lies and sign some papers that just not going to mean anything once the meeting is over. Stop being duped, Democrats. You better get up that financial war chest. You better get your fundraising campaign together online like the Republicans are doing. They're trashing y'all, dogging y'all, cussing y'all out, saying all kind of berating, dumb, filthy things about you and about black people online, and they're raising hundreds of millions of dollars. Y'all better get online and start raising that money for your campaign so you can go to war politically in November. According to this article, while there is bipartisan support for body-worn cameras, Republicans have voiced resistance to other Democratic demands, signaling a difficult stretch ahead for negotiations. Then who cares? Let it be difficult. Let it be protracted. Let it be drawn out. Let it be long. Senate Majority Leader John Thune, a Republican from South Dakota, and other top Republicans have already signaled that another short-term Homeland Security bill would be needed. Even without another stopgap measure, President Trump's immigration crackdown will continue. So what does that tell you? In other words, it's saying we don't give up. What you Democrats think, we're going to continue to do business in the same old way, the way we've been doing it. And Congress gave ICE $75 billion over 4 years in the Republican tax and spending bill passed last year. That's a lot of money. Before the second deadly shooting by ICE officers in Minneapolis, the last of the federal funding bill was on track to sail through Congress with bipartisan support. Lawmakers were eager to avoid another lapse in funding following a record-long 43-day federal government shutdown last fall. Why are y'all so eager to give these Republicans what they want? All right, let's find out what's happening. Well, you know what? I don't just want to concentrate on American news. I want to go someplace else with this. Let's go over to Canada. That's why I call it global news. Let's find out what's happening with Canada news. According to Reuters, the Canadian dollar gains in limited move ahead of jobs data. And this article was written by Fergal Smith for Reuters news agency. Here's a summary. Canadian dollar gains 0.3% against the greenback, trades in a range of 1,000 to 1,363.37 to 1,306.85. Prices of oil increases by 1.5%. A 10-year yield torches a 4-week rate at 465%. So the Canadian dollar strengthened against its U.S. counterpart on Tuesday. as oil prices rose and the greenback posted broad-based declines. But the loonies move was limited ahead of jobs data due later this week. The loonie was trading at 0.3% higher at 1,642 per US dollar, or 73.30 US cents, after trading in a range of 1.3637 to 1.3685 on Friday. The currency torched its strongest intraday level since October 24 at 1.3479. The reality is that the US dollar and the Canadian dollar has depreciated a lot at the end of January for many reasons unrelated to Canada, and that the market should see some consolidation at these levels, said Sarah Ying, head of foreign exchange strategy at CIBC Capital Markets. You know why it's fluctuating? Because of taxation, because of tariffs. That's what's happening. So within the Bank of Canada, family on hold, we are not convinced that this Friday labor force survey data will have much market impact, Ying said. We think the United States dollar and the Canada dollar retest the 1.3800 handle between trading lower long term. Our year-end target for the US and Canada remains at 1.34. So there is, as you can see, Canada, they're moving at accelerated speed. Some more news coming out of Canada. Transport Canada, the United States FAA working on jet approvals after Trump threats. So what's happening here? The brief summary, who wrote this article? Wow, a lot of folk wrote this article. Allison Lampert, David Shepperson, and David Young Green. So Trump threatens tariffs on Canadian aircraft over lengthy Gulf Stream certification. Senators Morrow, Cantrell are urging a quick resolution. Transport Canada said on Tuesday it was working with the Federal Aviation Administration over delays in approving Gulfstream jets after U.S. President Donald Trump threatened to decertify and slap tariffs on Canadian-made aircraft. Trump said last week that the U.S. would decertify Bombardier global business jets and threatened 50% tariff imports on all aircraft made in Canada until the country's regulator certified a number of its jets produced by U.S. rival Gulfstream. Well, who owns Gulfstream? That's important to know. Who owns Gulfstream? While the U.S. FAA is not expected to strip Canadian planes of their regulatory approval, questions remained over whether Trump would follow through with his latest tariff threat. Aerospace has generally been less impacted than other sectors by Trump's U.S.-led trade war, with new planes and parts from Europe and Canada largely crossing borders without duties. The Canadian regulator said in a statement it was working with the FAA, Bombardier, and Gulfstream's aerospace parent company, General Dynamics, or GD-N, to resolve outstanding certification matters in a way that protects safety and regulatory integrity while maintaining market access on both sides of the border. The dispute has risen alarm in Canada and the U.S., where Canadian-made jets both comprise a key part of regional airline service and generate, what are they generating? A lot of revenue. And now back to America. Let's find out what's going on here. So the U.S. shot down an Iranian drone approaching an aircraft carrier, according to officials. The article is written by Idris Ali and Phil Stewart for Reuters News Agency. The summary says, an incident occurs before possible U.S.-Iran talks. Iranian Shahed 139 drone was shot down by F-35 jets. The U.S. military on Tuesday shot down an Iranian drone that aggressively approached the Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier in the Arabian Sea, the U.S. military said in an incident first reported by Reuters. The incident came as diplomats sought to arrange nuclear talks between Iran and the U.S. And U.S. President Donald Trump warned that with U.S. warships heading toward Iran, bad things would probably happen if a deal could not be reached. Oil futures prices rose from $1 per barrel after news the drones were shot down. The Iranian Shahed -139 drone was flying toward the carrier with unclear intent and was shot down by an F-35 U.S. fighter jet, the U.S. military said. Iran's joint mission declined to comment on what exactly happened. Iran's Tanzania news agency said connections had been lost with a drone in international waters, but the reason was unknown. No American service members were harmed during the incident. No U.S. equipment was damaged, he added. The Lincoln Carrier Strike Group is the most visible part of a U.S. military buildup in the Middle East. Now, you don't have a military buildup unless you're preparing for war. That's what the buildup is for. Unless you're preparing for war, you do not have a military buildup on the Arabian Peninsula. Trump, who stopped short of carrying out threats to intervene during the crackdown, has since demanded Tehran make nuclear concessions and sent a flotilla to its coast. He said last week Iran was seriously talking, while Tehran's top security official, Ali Lajarnani, said arrangements for negotiations were underway. All right, that's according to the news from the Reuters news agency. Well, we have a major problem, according to ESPN. African Olympic officials are expressing visa concerns for the 28 LA Games. Olympic officials from Africa expressed concerns over visa programs for entering the United States to its leaders of the 2028 Los Angeles Games on Tuesday, according to an ESPN.com staff writer. So officials from Africa expressed their concerns to leaders of the 2028 Los Angeles Games on Tuesday about a visa program for entering the United States. International Olympic Committee members from Ethiopia and Djibouti criticized the LA organizing team about how fans and visitors would get equal access to the U.S. in a 2.5 years' time. Los Angeles was first on the IOC conference stage among 6 future Olympic hosts, updating on their plans, though one whose home country is currently seeing the most domestic turmoil. Quote, it's a great worry for everybody, a third African IOC member, Lydia Sikira Barina, one of dozens of countries whose residents face restrictions entering the U.S., later told the AP of the visa uncertainty, even the team officials. The name of U.S. President Donald Trump was not said at the Olympic meeting, nor was reference made to his administration 3 days before Vance is due in Milan to attend the Winter Games opening ceremony. Let's go deeper into this. One reference, however, seems clear as the LA sought to project an air of calm reassurance. You know, it's a shame that sports got to get caught up in politics. The world is complicated and unpredictable, LA 2028 Chairman Casey Wasserman said in a scripted speech. Conflicts within and among nations ignite and are resolved. We are not naive to this reality. We take it seriously, and we will face it head on. With more than 100 IOC members were invited to ask questions. I'm not trying to read those African names. And it's just too hard, and I'm not going to fake it. I can't read them. It's just too much. The Trump administration has imposed a travel ban or limits on entry to people from dozens of countries, including Zimbabwe, the home of IOC President Kirsty Coventry. So just before I go to the next story, if you like watching Tyrone Bowman Live Global News, kindly subscribe to the channel. I would sincerely appreciate it. And if you like our channel and you like what we're doing, support the channel. Ladies and gentlemen, become a contributor. Support it. $1, $2, $3. Just send it to $PIE XL. It's $PEXL4. $PIE XEL number 4. So let's talk about the 4 who were charged in the Massachusetts Trump crackdown on food stamp fraud. Once again, according to Reuters, federal prosecutors in Massachusetts charged 4 people on Tuesday with using 115 stolen identities to fraudulently obtain over $1 million in food stamps and pandemic unemployed benefits in a case stemming from a Trump administration crackdown on waste, blah, blah, blah programs. Prosecutors said the defendants used stolen identities to obtain SNAP benefits in Massachusetts and Rhode Island to buy chicken, beef, pork, and other bulk food items for a defendant's restaurant. U.S. Attorney Leah Foley, during a press conference in Boston, said the scheme allowed them to fraudulently obtain $440,000 in benefits from the SNAP food aid program for lower-income Americans from 2023 to 2025. Those benefits are administered by states. I'm glad they're talking about that because I got something to add. I read an article about a woman, a Caucasian woman, by the way. She has booked the government out of $250 million. Listen, her name has not been mentioned. Her face has not been plastered all across television, Fox News, and all these other places. $250 million fraudulent scheme in SNAP benefits. Yeah, I said it. $250 million. And I'm going to find her picture. I'm going to post it up here, and I'm going to talk about her as well as I'm talking about this article as well. See, when you read and hear articles like this, they deliberately try to miscue and eliminate anybody of Caucasian descent. Really? They're the biggest fraudsters of all because it's called white-collar crime. White-collar crime is more prevalent than any other kind of crime in the country. Prosecutors say they further enriched themselves by over $700,000 by submitting fraudulent applications for pandemic unemployment assistance in Massachusetts, New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Nevada from 2020 to 2021. And don't forget about all the Republican states as well. Those PPP loans that people falsified the documents, falsified signatures, they got that money, and some of them were politicians. Isn't that something? Politicians even use PPP loans to pay off their student debts, yet they were never punished for it. I said they were never punished for it. So we're not going to make this a Democratic thing. It's called corruption. Corruption is neither Democratic nor Republican. It's what it is. Corruption. Foley said the case stemmed from efforts by Trump's administration to pursue charges over the extraordinary amount of benefit fraud we are seeing across the country, and is just a snapshot of the bigger picture. It's no secret that there is rampant fraud across this nation. We know this. I've been saying this for almost a whole year. It's not just marginalized to one group of people. It's widespread across the country. But they don't want to talk about the millions of people who are ethically and morally and legally and responsibly adhering to the guidelines and the requirements that it takes for them to have Section 8 and to have benefits. See? Who wrote the laws? Who makes the laws? Who violates the laws? The defendants include Raul Fernandez, a naturalized U.S. citizen from the Dominican Republic, who owned the Leominster, Massachusetts-based El Primo restaurant. Court records show he has agreed to plead guilty to conspiracy and fraud charges. The other 3 are Joel Vizcacio Fernandez, a green card holder from the Dominican Republic. What's wrong with you, dude? And cousins Roman Vasquez Fernandez and Caraba Alvarician Saniva, two Venezuelans who previously held temporary protected status or PTA, but no longer have legal status. So what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you people? They were arrested and charged with fraud-related offenses filed in court in Worcester, Massachusetts. A lawyer said she will plead not guilty. Other defendants' lawyers did not respond to requests for comments. That's a lot of thievery. Now, let me tell all you people that have these stores, when people who come to your stores and they got the SNAP benefits, y'all better make sure y'all doing this thing right. Better make sure you're doing it legally. Make sure your accounts and balances measure up. Make sure that you're not cutting side deals and all kinds of stuff like that, because it will come back to haunt you. I said it will come back to haunt you. Now check this out. According to the Philadelphia Inquirer, ICE has purchased a $87 million warehouse in Berks County as it plots expansion of immigration detention centers across the U.S. Think about that for a minute. All these big giant department stores that you see rising up, they're not department stores. They're warehouses. And Montgomery County. And these warehouses, Bucks County, Montgomery County, surrounding areas, and these warehouses are going to be turned into jails, to prisons. It's part of GEO. All right, according to MS Now, Philadelphia District Attorney Larry Krasner, in an article written by Allison Detzel, said, quote, "We will come after you. Local prosecutors tell federal officials no one is above the law. District attorney are banding together to push back against the Trump administration's overreach. Prosecutors from across the country have formed a new coalition, Fight Against Federal Overreach, or FAFO, which seeks to hold federal agents accountable for unlawful behavior." Hennepin County Attorney Marty Moriarty and Philadelphia District Attorney Larry Krasner joined the weeknight on Monday to discuss the new effort and explain how they plan to fight Donald Trump's immigration crackdown. Quote, "I believe in justice," Krasner said. "I think most Americans do, and we're up against an administration that has no qualms about doing things that are deeply immoral, illegal, and unconstitutional," end quote. Moriarty, whose jurisdiction includes Minneapolis, told MS Now that immigration or ICE agents are being given a message from the administration that they can do absolutely anything they want without consequences. That is not true. The Minnesota prosecutor said, "I have made it clear to our community that we have every right to investigate and to bring charges if we think it's appropriate." Krasner said the district attorneys involved in FAFO understand the challenge that comes with publicly opposing Trump, but added that, quote, "Part of our oath is to uphold the Constitution, the laws, and also to seek justice," end quote. "We cannot do that and acquiesce to what this administration is trying to do," Krasner said. What's happening in Pennsylvania? Well, according to the Pennsylvania Capital Star, Kentucky's governor's super PAC has been given $450K from a Pennsylvania donor. The super PAC, serving as forerunner to Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear's anticipated presidential campaign stepped up its fundraising in the second half of 2025, thanks in large part to a Pennsylvania donor who gave a whopping $450,000. The super PAC is called In This Together, and the top donor overall over the 6-month period is Ashnis Tapel of Carlisle, Cumberland County. In a report filed Monday with the Internal Revenue Service, In This Together disclosed that Patel, who never before contributed to a Beshear political committee, made 3 contributions of $150,000 each between August 1st and December 16. Patel was by far the largest donor over the period, although several others are listed as having given 100,000. Churchill Downs, Lexington Trots, Breeders Association, the Red Mile, and Nathan Schwarzberg, a real estate developer, and a New York-based company identified as 1313 West Main Street Realty, which Secretary of State records show owns a nursing home in Ohio County in western Kentucky. Altogether, the Beshear Super PAC reported raising nearly $2.9 million during the 6-month period. That's twice as much as it reported raising in the first half of 2025. Beshear created In This Together soon after winning re-election as governor in 2023. The Super PAC allows Beshear to keep its political operation intact as it raises money and contributes part of the money to candidates Beshear supports across the country. You know, I've been telling people for a while now, we need to start our own super PACs. I said we need to start our own super PACs and support candidates who are going to support our causes. Because if you don't, you have no voice in it. Stop blindly giving people your money. Because if you keep giving your money to these politicians, your hard-earned money that they get for tax-free, and they can spend anywhere they choose to, you're going to find out how you have no voice in the decision-making process. Okay, 247 Sports. New Penn State recruit highlights of Dante Flemings Jr.'s first commit for a new class. All right, what's up with Dante Jr.? See, do you have a picture of him here? Nope, so I'm not going to talk about it. I thought we had a picture of him, but we don't. No photos, no stock photos, nothing. Now that you may be interested, some people may, an iconic Diet Coke flavor is finally coming back. Coca-Cola is also dropping a new flavor inspired by an ice cream treat, as reported by the Food Network, according to Adam Campbell-Schmidt. Diet Coke fans know the calorie-free soda belongs in a class of its own. And we'd bet the people at Coca-Cola think that way too, considering they released Coke Zero in 2005, yet Diet Coke doesn't seem to be going anywhere. Now the classic Diet Coke flavor is returning to store shelves after a years-long break, and is being joined by a new flavor too. In 1986, Diet Cherry Coke rolled out as a cousin to Cherry Coca-Cola. The brand's first favorite take on its classic cola. Over time, it was joined by flavors like Diet Coke with lemon, Diet Coke vanilla, Diet Coke raspberry, and the recently reintroduced Diet Coke lime. Among others, Diet Coke Cherry, as it's been called since 2005, remained on store shelves in one form or another until the company phased it out in 2020. That's in case you wanted to know. All right, ladies and gentlemen, my time is up for today on this particular thing. Thank you for watching. Thank you for those who have subscribed to the channel, Columbus NAACP 1925. All right, until next time, never surrender, never quit.